The galaxy had seen many powerful species, but none as feared as the Cracker. For centuries, they ruled with an iron fist, conquering planet after planet. Their ships were massive and their weapons were unmatched. No one dared challenge them. The Cracker were the strongest. But now, something had changed. A single ship had entered their territory. The Cracker had never faced such a challenge before. This ship, small compared to their mighty war fleets, seemed almost insignificant. Yet it was moving straight toward them, boldly ignoring the power of the Cracker fleet. On board that ship was a crew of humans, led by Commander Rachel Cole. They had come from a small planet called Earth, a place many in the galaxy thought was weak and primitive. The humans had no big warships or armies, yet they had something more powerful: their will to survive. The Cracker laughed when they first detected the Iron Fist, the human ship. A single ship, they mocked. What can they do against the might of the Cracker fleet? Supreme Commander Rakthar, leader of the Cracker, looked at the readouts on his screen and shook his head. This will be no challenge. Destroy it. But as they moved in, something happened that none of them expected. The Iron Fist fired first. A bright, blinding beam shot from its weapons, striking one of the Cracker ships. The ship exploded into space debris before anyone could react. The Cracker were shocked. No one had ever fired first against them, let alone done any real damage. "What is this?" Rakthar muttered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "This human ship is more dangerous than we thought," one of his officers said nervously. The Cracker immediately sent their ships to retaliate, but the human ship was fast. It moved like a shadow, dodging blast after blast. The Iron Fist was small but nimble. Its weapons were precise. Each shot took out a Cracker ship, one after another. The Cracker were not used to being attacked this way. They were used to their enemies running, begging for mercy. But these humans, they fought back. The Iron Fist wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's resolve. Commander Cole stood confidently on the bridge, watching the battle unfold. She knew what the Cracker were thinking. They thought humanity was weak. They thought the humans would cower in fear. But they were wrong. "We're not here to surrender," Commander Cole said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "We're here to show them what humanity is capable of." The Cracker's confidence was quickly turning into fear. They had expected an easy victory. They thought they could crush the humans without breaking a sweat, but they were now realizing how wrong they were. The Iron Fist wasn't just a ship, it was a challenge. The humans were strong, smart, and determined. They were willing to fight for their place in the galaxy. As the battle continued, Rakthar's frustration grew. His ships were being picked off one by one. "Focus fire on the human ship. We cannot allow them to defeat us," he ordered. But the more they attacked, the more the humans outmaneuvered them. The Iron Fist seemed unstoppable. Inside the Cracker flagship, panic began to set in. Rakthar's officers were frantically trying to adjust their strategies, but the human ship seemed to predict every move they made. It was as if they were fighting a force of nature itself. The Cracker had no experience fighting a species like this. Back on the Iron Fist, Commander Cole knew they couldn't hold back any longer. She gave the order to target the Cracker flagship. With a steady hand, she watched as the human ship fired its main weapon. The blast hit the flagship with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves through space. For a moment, everything went silent. The Cracker flagship was severely damaged. It was clear the humans weren't just playing defense. They were fighting to win. The Cracker fleet began to retreat, but the Iron Fist pursued them relentlessly. Humanity's resolve was too strong. They had sent a message, loud and clear: we are not to be underestimated. As the Cracker fleet limped away, Commander Cole spoke softly: "We've only just begun. The galaxy will learn who we are." The Cracker had underestimated the humans. They thought a single ship couldn't challenge them. They laughed. But by the end of this battle, it was the Cracker who were screaming in terror. The human ship, small and underestimated, had proven that even the most feared empire in the galaxy could be brought to its knees by the power of humanity. The Cracker fleet, once a terrifying force that struck fear into the hearts of all who encountered them, was now retreating. Their ships were damaged, and their pride shattered. They had underestimated humanity, and it had cost them dearly. The human ship, the Iron Fist, had single-handedly turned the tide of battle in ways the Cracker never thought possible. On board the Cracker flagship, Supreme Commander Rakthar stood motionless, staring at the chaos unfolding outside his viewports. His once proud fleet was now scattered, fleeing for their lives. His officers remained silent, unable to offer any advice. Rakthar's fists clenched, his anger building. How did this happen? He growled under his breath. How could a single ship do this to us? His chief strategist, General Rooklash, stepped forward cautiously, fear evident in his voice. Supreme Commander, the human ship is unlike anything we've encountered. It's small, but it's powerful. It has weapons we didn't anticipate, and its tactics, they're unpredictable. Rakthar glared at him. Are you suggesting that we, the greatest empire in the galaxy, were defeated by a single human ship? His voice was a low, menacing growl. That's impossible. They are nothing but insects. How can they be so dangerous? Rooklash swallowed nervously but continued. It's true. Their weapons are precise, and their maneuverability is incredible. Our ships are too slow to catch them. They're using hit-and-run tactics, exploiting our weaknesses. We must rethink our strategy, or we will lose everything. Rakthar paced in frustration. The Cracker had never faced a foe like this. They were used to crushing their enemies with overwhelming numbers and sheer force. But humanity had shown them something new. They had shown them the power of determination and strategy. Rakthar hated the feeling of vulnerability that washed over him. He had to act fast. If he didn't, the Cracker might lose more than just this battle. We'll turn the tide, Rakthar finally said, his voice cold and steely. We'll send reinforcements, more ships. We'll surround the human ship and crush them with sheer numbers. It's the only way. But even as he spoke those words, Rakthar wasn't entirely convinced. Deep down, he knew that the Iron Fist had revealed a new side to humanity, a side that wasn't easy to defeat. They had fought back with a strength that the Cracker hadn't expected, and they would fight again. Meanwhile, on the Iron Fist, Commander Rachel Cole was preparing for the next phase of the mission. After their stunning victory, they couldn't afford to rest. They had sent a message, but the war was far from over. The Cracker were a dangerous foe, and they would undoubtedly come back with more force. Status report, Cole said, her voice steady as she paced across the command center. Her officers were busy at their stations, working quickly to ensure the Iron Fist was ready for whatever came next. Captain, we've inflicted heavy damage on their fleet, Lieutenant Green reported. The Cracker are retreating, but they're regrouping. I'm guessing they'll send more ships after us. They won't let this go. Cole nodded. Prepare the ship for further combat. We're not stopping. We've shown them that humanity is a force to be reckoned with, but we need to be ready for their retaliation. She turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kara Hughes. What's the status of our weapons systems? All systems are functioning at optimal levels, Hughes replied. We can keep up this fight as long as we need to. But we have to be smart. We're outnumbered, and the Cracker have more firepower. We don't need to match their firepower, Cole said, her eyes narrowing with determination. We need to outsmart them. That's how we're going to win this. The Cracker, meanwhile, were not just angry. They were scared. They had never faced a species like humanity before. The Iron Fist had revealed their vulnerabilities in ways that the Cracker never imagined. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight, and now they were scrambling to regain control. Rakthar issued a series of frantic orders, sending out wave after wave of Cracker ships to intercept the human vessel. But despite their overwhelming numbers, they still couldn't catch the Iron Fist. Each attack was met with fierce resistance, and the Cracker were beginning to lose their confidence. But Rakthar refused to give in. "I will not be defeated by a human ship," he shouted to his crew. "We will have vengeance. All forces are to converge on the human vessel. No mercy." As the Cracker prepared for their final assault, the Iron Fist continued its mission. Cole knew that this was just the beginning. The Cracker had been forced to retreat once, but they would come back stronger. It was up to humanity to prove that they were more than just a fleeting threat. The galaxy was about to witness the second act of humanity's fight, a fight against the most powerful empire the galaxy had ever seen. And this time, the Cracker would know they weren't facing just another species to conquer. They were facing humans, determined, clever, and willing to fight to the end. The Cracker were furious. Their empire had been challenged in a way they never thought possible. They had invaded countless planets, wiped out entire species, and expanded their territory without hesitation. But now, they were facing a human ship, and it was humiliating. They had underestimated humanity, and that mistake was costing them dearly. Rakthar stood in his command chamber, his claws digging into the armrests of his throne. The war room was tense, filled with Cracker officers who were all too aware of the situation. The Supreme Commander had given orders for a massive counterattack, but it was clear that the Iron Fist was unlike anything they had encountered before. Every time they thought they had the human ship cornered, it vanished into the void, only to strike again with deadly precision. "The human ship is a ghost," Rakthar spat, his voice filled with rage. "We send our forces to crush it, and it disappears before we can even get close. This is unacceptable." Supreme Commander, General Ruklash spoke up, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "We've tried overwhelming them with numbers, but this strategy is failing. The Iron Fist is too fast, too unpredictable. We need to rethink our approach." Rakthar slammed his fist onto the table, making the room shake. "We do not rethink. We conquer. We have to teach these humans a lesson. They will learn that no one challenges the Cracker Empire and survives." But despite his bluster, doubt lingered in Rakthar's mind. He couldn't shake the nagging feeling that humanity wasn't like the other species they had crushed. They were resourceful, clever, and relentless, and that made them dangerous. Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Fist, Commander Rachel Cole was preparing for their next move. The Cracker had regrouped, and it was only a matter of time before they launched their next attack. The Iron Fist had already been through several skirmishes, but the real battle was just beginning. Cole knew they had to keep up the pressure if they wanted to stay ahead. "Lieutenant Green, what's the status of their fleet?" Cole asked as she walked up to the tactical console. "They've sent more ships, Commander," Green replied, his face tense as he studied the data on his screen. "Looks like they're planning a massive assault. They're not giving up." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Good. We'll make them regret underestimating us." She turned to her crew. "Listen up, everyone. We've already proven that we can outmaneuver them. But now we need to take the fight to them. We need to be the hunters, not the hunted. We'll hit them where it hurts, strike their command ships, disable their communication lines, and leave them confused. If we can break their command structure, they'll fall apart." There was a murmur of agreement among the crew. They were ready. They had seen what the Iron Fist could do, and they knew that they could win this fight. The Cracker may have been a powerful empire, but humanity had something they didn't: the will to fight, even when all seemed lost. As the Cracker fleet approached, the Iron Fist slipped through the darkness of space like a shadow, invisible to the enemy sensors. They had already learned the Cracker's patterns, and now they used that knowledge to their advantage. The Iron Fist wasn't just a ship. It was a weapon, a symbol of humanity's strength and defiance. The Cracker fleet advanced, believing they had finally trapped the human vessel. They surrounded the Iron Fist on all sides, launching a barrage of missiles and energy blasts. But as the missiles neared, the Iron Fist darted out of the way with lightning speed. dodging every shot. The Cracker couldn't believe their eyes. The human ship was too fast, too unpredictable. It was as if they were playing a game of cat and mouse. But the mouse was outwitting the cat at every turn. "We can't catch it," one of the Cracker officers yelled in frustration. Rakthar's eyes burned with fury. "You're telling me that a human ship is outmaneuvering us? This is an insult." He knew that they had to do something drastic if they were going to win. The Cracker had always relied on brute force, overwhelming their enemies with their sheer size and firepower. But this human ship was showing them that intelligence, speed, and precision could be just as deadly. "We need to break their will," Rakthar growled. "We'll force them into a corner. We'll make them feel trapped, and then we'll strike." But even as the Cracker advanced, the Iron Fist was already planning its next move. Cole and her crew knew that they couldn't keep running forever. The Cracker were relentless, and they had the advantage in numbers. But humanity had proven that they didn't need to win every battle to succeed. They just needed to win the ones that mattered. The Cracker were closing in, but Cole's mind was already working on a plan. The Iron Fist would strike first, fast and hard. They would disrupt the Cracker's communications, disable their weapons, and then escape before they could retaliate. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance to turn the tide. "Prepare for a full attack," Cole ordered. "This ends now." The stakes were higher than ever. The Cracker were closing in on the Iron Fist, their desperation growing with each passing moment. But humanity had already shown them that they weren't going to be easy prey. The fight was far from over, and the Cracker were about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the resolve of humanity. The Iron Fist had proven its worth, but the battle was far from over. The Cracker, despite their growing frustration, were not giving up. Rakthar, though furious, was also a leader who understood the importance of adjusting strategies when necessary. His empire had crushed countless species across the galaxy, and he was determined not to be outwitted by humanity. They had underestimated humans before, but that mistake would not be repeated. "You're telling me this is the best you can do?" Rakthar sneered at the officers who had failed to capture the human ship. "Get it together. We will make them regret ever challenging us. We will crush them." The officers nodded, clearly aware of the stakes. If they couldn't take down the Iron Fist soon, their empire might suffer a severe blow. Humanity was proving to be a more formidable opponent than they had ever expected. But Rakthar was not a leader to back down, and he was prepared to do whatever it took to win. Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Fist, Commander Rachel Cole's nerves were tested to their limits. They had been evading the Cracker for days, but the pressure was beginning to mount. Every time they slipped through the enemy's grasp, the Cracker learned something new, adapting their tactics to counter the Iron Fist's speed. It was only a matter of time before the enemy would find a way to corner them. "Lieutenant Green," Cole said, her voice calm despite the rising tension. "How much longer can we keep this up?" Green, the ship's tactical officer, looked up from his console, his face tight with concern. "We can't run forever, Commander. The Cracker are closing in. Their fleet is larger, and their ships are getting faster. Sooner or later, we'll have to face them head-on." Cole's mind raced. She knew they couldn't afford to play defense for much longer. The Cracker had underestimated humanity, but that advantage was slipping away as the enemy adapted. They needed a plan, one that would force the Cracker to change their thinking. "We're not just going to run," Cole said with determination. "We're going to take the fight to them. If we can force them into a position where they don't know what to do, they'll crack. We've already shown them we're not like the others. It's time to prove that." Green raised an eyebrow, surprised by her sudden confidence. "How do we do that?" "We strike fast and hard," Cole said. "We know their weaknesses. We know they rely on their sheer numbers. If we can create confusion in their ranks, we can break them apart." The Cracker fleet was advancing, closing in on the Iron Fist at an alarming speed. Rakthar was ready for the final confrontation. He had issued orders to tighten their formation, expecting to trap the human ship with their overwhelming firepower. But he had made a critical mistake. Just as the Cracker fleet prepared to launch their final assault, the Iron Fist disappeared into the depths of space, using a tactic the Cracker hadn't anticipated. The human ship did not flee in a straight line, but rather it weaved through the battlefield, using asteroids and debris to mask its movements. The Cracker struggled to keep up, their ships scattering in confusion. Where did they go? One of the Cracker officers shouted, scanning the space around them. Rakthar's fists clenched. They tricked us again. No more games. We will find them. But what Rakthar didn't realize was that the Iron Fist had already positioned itself for an attack. Cole had used the Cracker's overconfidence against them. While they had been focused on chasing the human ship, she had set a trap of her own. Now, the Cracker fleet was scattered, vulnerable, and unaware of the impending assault. "Lieutenant Green," Cole said, her voice sharp, "prepare the targeting systems. We're going in." Green nodded, his fingers flying over the console as he activated the ship's weapons. The Iron Fist's stealth mode deactivated, and its powerful weapons systems locked onto the nearest Cracker capital ship. The Cracker, caught off guard, had no time to react. The Iron Fist fired. The blast struck the Cracker flagship with pinpoint accuracy, disabling its shields and causing catastrophic damage. The flagship's engines went dark, and its crew was thrown into chaos. A secondary explosion tore through the ship's hull, sending it spiraling into the void. "Targeting systems are locked on another ship, Commander," Green said, his voice filled with awe. "It's working. We're taking them apart, one by one." Cole allowed herself a small smile, but there was no time to celebrate. The Cracker were not going to give up easily. They had lost their flagship, but they were still a formidable force. "Keep the pressure on them," Cole ordered. "Don't let up." On the Cracker side, the atmosphere was one of panic. Rakthar had watched his flagship burn, and his rage was palpable. He had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. But Rakthar was not one to concede defeat easily. His empire was vast, and he still had the numbers to overwhelm the humans. "Regroup," Rakthar bellowed, his eyes blazing. "We will crush them. We will not be beaten by a single human ship." The battle raged on as the Iron Fist continued to strike with deadly precision. The Cracker fleet was in disarray, and despite their numbers, they could not match the cunning and agility of humanity. The tide had shifted, and now it was the Cracker who were on the defensive. Commander Rachel Cole knew that the battle was far from over, but for the first time since the conflict began, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They had taken the first step toward victory, and the Cracker were finally beginning to realize the full extent of their mistake. They had challenged humanity, and now they would face the consequences. The battle was not over, but the tide had certainly shifted in humanity's favor. The Iron Fist had dealt a devastating blow to the Cracker fleet, but the enemy was far from ready to surrender. In fact, it was the opposite. As their ships burned and their numbers dwindled, the Cracker's desperation grew. They had faced many enemies over the centuries, but none had challenged their might like humanity had. On the bridge of the Iron Fist, Commander Rachel Cole stood tall, her face set with determination. She had known this day would come, the point where the Cracker would realize that they were losing. But she also knew that the enemy was not going to go down without a fight. The Iron Fist had inflicted significant damage, but the Cracker were regrouping, their anger fueling their resolve. "We need to keep up the pressure," Cole said, her voice steady. "They're not going to give up easily." Lieutenant Green, the ship's tactical officer, nodded. "The Cracker fleet is trying to reorganize. Their remaining ships are running defensive formations, trying to protect their remaining capital ships. They're getting desperate, but they're still dangerous. We can't let up," Cole replied, her mind racing through options. "I want all guns on their most advanced ship. We cripple it, and the rest will fall apart." On the Cracker flagship, Rakthar could feel his empire crumbling around him. His warships, once so mighty and unstoppable, were now in disarray. The humans had caught them off guard, striking them where they were weakest. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. "Where is the backup?" Rakthar roared. His eyes burned with fury as he paced across the deck of the flagship. His fleet was in shambles, his empire's pride crumbling beneath the weight of human resolve. "Commander Rakthar, we have managed to regroup some forces," one of his officers reported, though his voice lacked the confidence it once had. "But their tactics, they're unlike anything we've seen. They adapt too quickly." Rakthar slammed his fist into the table. "We are the Cracker. We do not fear anything, especially not a single human ship." His voice shook the walls of the bridge, but beneath the anger, a seed of doubt began to grow. Could the Cracker be defeated by just one human ship? "Get me a fleet-wide communication," Rakthar demanded. "It's time to remind these humans who they're dealing with." On the Iron Fist, Cole watched as the Cracker regrouped. Their ships were forming a defensive line, and she knew that if they gave the enemy time, they would adapt and find a way to stop them. But Cole wasn't about to let that happen. She had one chance to strike, and she wasn't going to waste it. "Lieutenant Green, target their flagship," Cole ordered. "We take out their leader, and the rest will follow." Green's fingers moved rapidly across the control panel. "Aye, Commander. Targeting their flagship now." The Iron Fist's weapon systems locked on the Cracker flagship. Cole's eyes narrowed as the countdown began. She could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. This was the moment that could turn the tide of the war. A single shot could decide the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. "Fire," Cole commanded. The ship's weapon systems unleashed a devastating volley of energy blasts that tore through the void of space. The shots hit the Cracker flagship with pinpoint accuracy, damaging its shields and hull. The flagship rocked violently as explosions erupted within its core. The Cracker flagship, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a burning hulk, barely holding together. On the Cracker flagship, Rakthar's eyes widened in shock as the Iron Fist's attack hit. The flagship's systems began to fail, and alarms blared throughout the ship. Rakthar's fists clenched, his mind racing. "No, this cannot be happening," Rakthar muttered. "We cannot lose to them. Not now. Not after everything we've done." His officers scrambled to try to regain control of the ship, but it was clear that the flagship was crippled. They had underestimated the humans. They had been overconfident in their power. Now their empire was on the brink of collapse. "Commander Rakthar," one of his officers said, his voice trembling, We cannot continue this fight. The Iron Fist is too powerful. We must retreat." Rakthar's eyes blazed with fury. "Retreat." He spat. "I will not run from these humans. We will fight until the last ship falls." But the tide had already turned, and the Cracker were losing. The Iron Fist continued to press the attack, targeting the remaining Cracker ships with deadly precision. The Cracker fleet, once an unstoppable force, was now a shadow of its former self, scattered and broken. The human ship had not just matched their strength, it had exceeded it. Cole watched the Cracker flagship falter, its systems failing as the Iron Fist continued to bombard it. "We've got them," she said quietly, her voice filled with satisfaction. "Now let's finish this." Lieutenant Green smiled grimly. "Aye, Commander." With one final devastating volley, the Iron Fist struck the Cracker flagship. The ship erupted into a brilliant explosion, and with it, the last hopes of the Cracker to defeat humanity. As the Cracker flagship burned in the distance, Rakthar realized the truth. Humanity had outmatched them, and it was too late to change that. The Cracker Empire, once the most feared power in the galaxy, had been brought to its knees by a single human ship. Rakthar's empire was collapsing. He had underestimated humanity, and now there was no escaping the consequences of that mistake. As the last of his fleet retreated, Rakthar could only watch as the Iron Fist sailed victorious into the stars. The Cracker had learned a painful lesson: never underestimate humanity. And the Iron Fist had proven that one ship, one human ship, was more than enough to change the course of the galaxy forever. The Cracker Empire was on the edge of total collapse. Their flagship was destroyed, and the remnants of their once proud fleet were scattered throughout the galaxy, desperately trying to regroup. But there was no escaping the crushing truth: the humans had broken them. And now, the Cracker faced a difficult choice: fight to the death or face the humiliation of surrender. The Iron Fist stood at the heart of the battlefield, its weapons trained on the last remaining Cracker ships. Commander Rachel Cole stood tall on the bridge, her expression unwavering. She had seen countless battles in her career, but nothing had prepared her for the sheer determination and strength of humanity's greatest weapon, the Iron Fist. "We've got them on the ropes," Lieutenant Green said, his eyes glued to the tactical display. "They're trying to form up one final push, but it's weak. They're shattered." Cole nodded, her mind calculating their next move. "They'll make one last attempt to strike us, but we'll finish it now. No mercy." On the Cracker flagship's destroyed bridge, Rakthar, the once mighty warlord of the Cracker Empire, sat hunched over. His mind raced, trying to grasp the impossibility of it all. He had ordered the destruction of entire civilizations. He had watched his enemies crumble before him, but now it was his empire that was crumbling. And he couldn't stop it. Humanity had proven itself too strong. "Commander Rakthar, we are out of options," one of his officers reported, his voice heavy with defeat. "The Iron Fist has destroyed our most powerful ships. We have only a handful of warships left, and they are no match for the humans. If we continue, we will be wiped out completely." Rakthar's eyes blazed with fury. "You speak of surrender." His voice was thick with anger, and he slammed his fist into the control panel. "We will not run. We will not give in to these humans." But deep down, Rakthar knew the truth. His empire was finished. The Iron Fist had not just beaten them, it had humiliated them. The last remnants of his fleet would not survive, and even if they did, there was no way they could rebuild after the damage that had been done. On the Iron Fist, Cole knew the battle wasn't over, but the end was in sight. The Cracker were cornered, their escape routes cut off. The remaining ships would either fight to the last or surrender. There would be no mercy. "Prepare for the final assault," Cole ordered, her voice calm but resolute. "We take out their last ships. Leave nothing behind." The crew worked swiftly, their movements synchronized with the precision that had become second nature to them. The Iron Fist's weapons powered up, and the hum of energy coursed through the ship. Outside, the last of the Cracker ships moved into position, trying desperately to hold their ground. "They're preparing to charge," Lieutenant Green said, his voice laced with tension. "Let them," Cole replied. "We've got this." The Cracker fleet, what was left of it, made one last push. They launched forward, weapons blazing, hoping to break through the human defenses. But it was a futile effort. The Iron Fist was ready, and the humans had learned how to exploit every weakness of their enemies. As the Cracker ships approached, the Iron Fist unleashed its full firepower. The powerful weapon systems targeted the enemy with pinpoint accuracy, striking their shields first, then their hulls. Cracker ships exploded in flashes of light, one after another. The human ship moved like a predator through the wreckage, its weapons never faltering, its crew working as one unified force. The Cracker ships, already damaged and underpowered, stood no chance. Within minutes, the once feared Cracker fleet was reduced to wreckage. Rakthar watched from what remained of his flagship, helpless. His final fleet was being annihilated before his eyes, and he could do nothing to stop it. His people were dying. His empire was dying. The humans were unstoppable. "Commander Rakthar," another officer called. "The remaining ships, they are being destroyed. There is no way to win this fight. Rakthar turned, his face twisted with fury. "We will fight until the end. There is no retreat, no surrender. I will not let the humans take everything we've built." But even as he spoke, he knew it was over. The Iron Fist had proven to be too much, and the Cracker had no more power to challenge it. He had been so sure of his superiority. But now his empire lay in ruins, and humanity had shown the galaxy that even the most feared species could be defeated. Back on the Iron Fist, Cole watched the Cracker fleet fall apart. With each shot, the Cracker's resistance weakened until it was nothing more than a memory. The remaining ships were either destroyed or fleeing, and Cole knew it was only a matter of time before the last Cracker forces were eradicated. "We've done it," Cole said softly, almost to herself. "The Cracker Empire is finished." Green gave her a small smile, his voice proud. Humanity's first victory against the Cracker. The galaxy will never forget this day. Cole nodded, her eyes lingering on the wreckage of the Cracker fleet. The humans had proven their strength, their resolve, and their ability to turn the tide of the galaxy's power in a single blow. The Cracker had been the most feared species in the galaxy, until they had challenged humanity. And now, humanity stood victorious. The last remnants of the Cracker fleet had been obliterated, and Rakthar had finally been forced to face the reality he had long tried to avoid. His empire was gone. It was humanity's time to rise. The Iron Fist had crushed the Cracker and proven that no matter how powerful a species may seem, humanity's determination and resolve were unmatched. As the Iron Fist drifted through the silent remains of the battlefield, Commander Rachel Cole stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. This was more than just a victory. It was a statement. The galaxy had just learned a powerful lesson: never challenge humanity. And for the Cracker, that lesson had come too late. The battlefield was silent now, the wreckage of the Cracker fleet floating lifelessly in space. The Iron Fist drifted through the remains, its mission complete, its crew exhausted but proud. For weeks, they had fought tooth and nail against a seemingly unstoppable empire. And now, after the final blow had been struck, the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Rachel Cole stood on the bridge of the Iron Fist, her eyes fixed on the destruction around her. The Cracker had been more than just an enemy. They had been a symbol of the galaxy's might, a species feared by every other. But now, in the wake of their defeat, humanity had shown the galaxy that it was not only a force to be reckoned with, it was the force to be feared. The communications officer's voice broke the silence. "Commander Cole, we've received a transmission from the Council of Species. They're calling for a ceasefire and peace talks." Rachel's expression was unreadable. She had expected this moment, the moment when the rest of the galaxy would begin to take notice. But she wasn't ready to make concessions, not yet. "Tell them we'll respond when we're ready. We don't negotiate with those who thought they could erase us." Lieutenant Green, standing nearby, spoke up. "The galaxy won't be the same after this, will it, Commander?" "No," Rachel replied softly. "We've made sure of that." Back on Earth, news of the Iron Fist's victory had already spread throughout the world. Humans everywhere celebrated, knowing their species had just secured its place in the galactic hierarchy. The Cracker Empire, which had once been the greatest threat to the galaxy, was no more. Humanity had dealt the final blow. In the halls of power, world leaders met to discuss the future. No one could ignore the reality now. The Cracker were finished, and humanity had proven itself capable of defending its place in the universe. The question was no longer about survival. It was about what humanity would do next. "We have shown the galaxy that we will not back down," President Alan Carter said, his voice firm. "Now we must take our place among the stars. The Iron Fist has shown us that humanity is not just a survivor, it's a conqueror." His words rang with conviction, and the others in the room nodded in agreement. The time had come to make humanity's presence known in a way it never had been before. The galaxy had learned its lesson. No one would ever again underestimate humanity. On the Iron Fist, the crew was finally allowed to rest. The battle had been long and brutal, but now, in the aftermath, they knew that their victory had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. They had wiped out the Cracker fleet, and in doing so, had shattered the illusion of invincibility that had surrounded the most feared empire in the galaxy. Rachel Cole stood in her quarters, staring out at the stars. She had led her crew to victory, but she knew this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more enemies who would try to test humanity's resolve. But for now, the Cracker were gone, and humanity stood at the precipice of something greater. "Commander, we've received another transmission from the Council," Lieutenant Green said, entering her quarters. "They want to begin negotiations now. They say we're the new power in the galaxy." Rachel turned to him, her face hardening. "Tell them we'll consider it, but we're not in a hurry." Green hesitated before continuing. "What do you think humanity should do now?" Rachel thought for a moment, her gaze returning to the endless expanse of stars. "Now we make sure everyone knows what happens when they challenge us. We show them that humanity is not just a power in the galaxy, it's the power." In the aftermath of the Cracker's defeat, the rest of the galaxy watched in awe as humanity began to rise. The Iron Fist's victory had been a turning point, and the Cracker Empire's downfall was just the beginning of a new era. The other species that once looked down on humanity now knew better. They had seen the power of the human warship, and they had seen how easily humanity had taken down the Cracker. They knew now that humanity was not to be underestimated. The galaxy would never forget the day the Cracker fell, nor would it forget the humans who made it happen. Rachel Cole stood before her crew one last time, as they prepared to leave the battlefield behind. "Today, we are not just a military force. We are a symbol of what happens when humanity is pushed too far. We've proven that we will fight for what is ours, and anyone who dares challenge us will find themselves on the wrong side of history." The crew stood at attention, their faces filled with pride and determination. The Iron Fist had done more than win a war. It had changed the course of the galaxy. And as the ship turned toward its next mission, Rachel knew one thing for sure. Humanity's story had just begun. And no one would forget the day the Cracker Empire was brought to its knees.